Welcome to A Photographer's Life, the channel that takes you behind the curtain into the world of professional architectural photography. Join us now for an episode with some of America's premier architectural photographers. Today's broadcast comes from a recent Zoom meeting of the Association of Independent Architectural Photographers. This discussion is led by AIAP Director Alan Blakely. We hope you enjoy the show. If you do, please let us know by liking this episode and subscribing to this channel. Now, on with the show.
I just want to welcome everybody to this. This is August 2024 AIAP conversation. We're going to be talking about travel and some ideas and some tips about how to do it best as an architectural photographer. And I just kind of wanted to kick this off about the travel concept and talk about, first of all, how do we bill for that? And who do we bill, and how much do we bill? And what are your thoughts on that, as far as who's picking up the tab and for how much?
Well, I'll start because last week that's exactly what happened. We were in Dallas for 4 days, and I initially checked around hotels around the area of the job site, and I simply did a calculation: 4 days, 2 people, 2 rooms, and I forwarded them. This is our advance deposit will include our services for guaranteeing a date and also the expense of travel. And they had no qualms about that, as it was an estimate. Now, if weather issues or other things come up, then we have to extend our day. We will add that additional cost to the final invoice. So I kept it separate. This is our travel and our deposit for getting the project securing a date. And that's how I handle it. And that was separate from the photography. And the client had no issues with that whatsoever on that.
Do you mark up your travel?
Definitely.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Is there a percentage that you go by?
I charge $35 for travel, whether I'm sitting in a car or sitting in the airport terminal, portal to portal. From the day I leave the office to the day I return, I'm on their clock, and I cannot work for another client. So I charge Dallas for North Dallas was from Houston, was almost 5-hour drive one way. And so I charge for my drive time, my fuel costs, and meals. And then any expenditures receipts that go beyond the estimated travel costs, I will add that to the final invoice as a separate item.
My time works out for, like, if it takes me a quarter of a day to travel, like the flight time, I just charge them for my regular day rate, like flight time. I because that's my time. My time is my time. I don't have a travel time. I just charge them a normal rate. And I've never had any qualms with that. I also probably drive more than a lot of photographers. Some people will take a quick flight from state to state or a few states away. And like when I go to Columbus, I drive that. I don't fly that. To me, it's just, I carry a lot of gear sometimes, and it's just, I'd rather do that, the safety of my gear, than, just take a day where we'll, drive in, shoot the job, stay over, and then take an easy day back. But I probably drive more than a lot of people do. I even sometimes drive to Houston instead of flying it, because I'm there usually for an extended period, and I like having my car instead of renting a car. Because car rental these days, oh my God. Yeah, it's insane. But I prefer that. I prefer that, and I don't mind road trip, and I don't mind that at all. So we take an easy drive down. We'll stay over, make it a 2-day trip or something, and
Go ahead. Typically, also, if time allows, I will go ahead and call several clients in that city that I've done business with or who would like to do business with. Say, I'm in town for an assignment. Are you open for a quick visit to drop by to introduce myself, or to old clients that say any upcoming projects, and I'll spend on my time an additional half day seeing additional clients, either just prior to the photo shoot or after the shoot. So I'm making it worthwhile driving there to see additional people.
I usually send out a notification if I know I'm going to be in a certain place and we're going to have an extra day or two, or can add an extra day or two. And I usually always pick up work like that. Going back to what Richard said, I always take a deposit, which covers all my hard costs for travel. I do mark up my travel 20%, and I charge a per diem. I fly a lot, and so and rent cars, and so all of that's marked up. And I usually figure a weather day in my estimate as well. I'll add a weather day, and I charge half rate for travel days. So if I'm not shooting, I'm charging half rate for the time that I'm either sitting in a car or sitting on a plane. And I get that up front so that I'm not having to foot any hard costs for a photo shoot, because I mean, it's less common now, but when I was working for ad agencies, you could expect to go 180 days on an invoice sometimes. Now I've only got a couple clients who are a little bit hard to get them to pay on the back end of things, but I'm less and less inclined to do anything that I don't get paid for on when I deliver the images. So, but I think getting paid up front so that you don't ever carry any costs. I just think you have to do that, just as a business practice. I wanted to talk, move into the way we pay for travel. I have the affinity credit cards for Delta, United, and American Airlines that I use for basically. I'm near a Delta hub where I live, and so I put everything on the Delta card, which also gives me, medallion status. Platinum medallion with Delta gets you free upgrades and free baggage and all that kind of thing. And those are, I think it's just an added advantage. If you're going to spend the money anyway, make that money work for you and get one of those cards so that you have those advantages with not having to pay for bags and getting treated a little bit better and being able to go to the airport lounge rather than sit, at the gate and all those kinds of things. So to me, the baggage waivers and all that kind of stuff. And a lot of times you can, when you book your ticket, if you're using your card too, you can also book your hotel and your rental car through the airline site, which gives you more points, which, if you travel as much as I do, you don't really want to travel anymore, but you do build up a lot of points. And so you end up not having to pay for travel down the road for some of the jobs that do come up that you're billing your client for, but you're not paying anything for, which makes it increasingly profitable. Anybody have any thoughts about the way we pay for travel like that?
I mean, I bill much like you, Alan. I bill 50% of my rate for my travel. I get a third up front on anything that has any travel involved. I bill my expenses at cost. I've started billing 2 hours of pre-production because I have a travel agent and I have her book everything, but I tend to find the flights myself and ask her to book them, so that if I'm on location, looks like we're gonna wrap up earlier than expected, I can call her and have her put us on an earlier flight or something like that to get home earlier. And I don't have to take time away from my shoot other than to shoot her a text to do that. I mean, I fly I fly a little bit of everything, unfortunately, but I've sort of tried to focus my efforts on Southwest and Delta, and I fly enough on Southwest that I'm A-list preferred, and I have a free companion pass. And what we do is anytime I fly on Southwest, we bill my business select fare. And because my one business select fare is typically less than 2 want to get away fares. And since my assistant is flying for free because I've got free companion pass, it's sort of like that's something I've earned. I don't need to pass along that to my client, but I'll fly business select and therefore rack up a bunch more points. And that has allowed me to take my family to Japan, take my family to Spain. We typically do one international trip a year, and between whether my Delta points, my Southwest points, my Hilton Honors points, I can pay for about 2/3 of that trip just with the points I've accrued.
That brings up another point that having the loyalty memberships for the different hotels and rental cars is huge, especially like Hilton Honors and Hertz, and we just established a relationship with National and Enterprise Rental Car through AIAP, which gives everybody a free Emerald Club status who wants to join up for that. But it's so nice when, like with Hilton Honors, you build up those points really quickly, and they treat you really nice, and they give you upgraded rooms and things like that when you build up all these points, and then you get free nights. And I mean, I think I've got like 65 or 70 nights already with Hilton this year, and so once you get to that diamond status, which they treat you really well and they take care of you. And the same with Hertz. If you're like President's Circle, you walk on and you get a really nice car and you just drive away. And National's the same way. I flew into LAX a couple weeks ago and had a National rental, and that's an airport that I don't like to go to. And even having to take the shuttle was not fun. But once I got to the rental car lot, and soon the rental car center is going to be finished there at LAX, but you just walk on and get a really nice car and you're done. And that's so nice. And honestly, you do get a better rate if you have these loyalty memberships. And so I have them with all the hotels that we stay at, which are generally Hilton, Marriott, and IHG hotels, and then Hertz and National are the rental cars that I rent from typically. But I also have a AAA membership, which will enhance those rates for all of those things. And AAA is really nice because then when you go to the rental candidate, and rather than have them beat you up for coverages every time, you've got it in your profile that you don't need all those coverages and you don't want all those coverages. And so, I'm not taking any of your coverages, then I'll bring the car back full. Leave me alone. And you're done.
Yeah, that's true if you use American Express as well. You
Yeah.
don't need any cover.
Yes. So, but the AAA also will give you some better rates with Hilton and Marriott and IHG. So you still can use your loyalty number for those hotels and get an even better rate. We were in Chicago just recently and got a much better rate on a hotel than we would have going through the regular site. But those are all kind of key things that you learn after doing this a while. So I was there briefly. I would have called if I had the time. You know, we we flew in and I was at this hotel and well, I probably shouldn't take this time to do this aside, but so we're shooting this hotel and I'm doing some just pictures of some light fixtures for a manufacturer. And they said, well, you've only got a minute to do this one area because we've got some celebrities coming in that are doing a TV spot, and I thought, how big deal. I don't know. Just let me do my job. And so anyway, so these two old guys come walking in with Chicago Cubs jerseys on, and I just didn't pay much attention. And my wife goes, "That's Cheech and Chong." And so we were booted out because Cheech and Chong needed to do their promo, whatever it was. Anyway, one other thing I was going to mention here is kind of the pitfalls of using a third-party site like Expedia or Travelocity, or I don't know if any of you use those or anybody
That
who's going to
doesn't work
listen.
out so good for hotels sometimes, because they show you this beautiful picture and you get to the hotel and it's this little skanky room.
Yeah.
Did you
And-
experience that?
Well, yeah, but the biggest problem that I've run into and why I don't use them anymore, I mean, I'll use them for comparison prices and or to find, to look at a city and see what's available or things like that. But if you have to make a change once you're on site, or want to make a cancellation, you're out of luck because the hotel or the rental car or the airline is not going to help you. They're going to send you right back to Expedia or Travelocity or Trivago or whoever you booked it through, and it's not a fun process to get something worked out. Yeah,
Yeah, I just deal directly with the hotel and I use the cards that we have for those particular hotels, and
hmm
even if we pay a little bit more, it's worth it not to have the headache.
yeah,
And
because they
especially,
are.
in Hilton is our choice for travel hotels
Yeah,
because they treat us really well. And, if you have a cancellation or if you need an extra day or anything you need, they're very accommodating.
as far as finding best prices, I I will use someplace like Expedia or Travelocity to see who flies into certain areas and at what price and kind of thing, and then go to the airline and make the reservation there. But don't ever book it that way. Um, there are some um, there are some kind of hacks about finding if you're in a situation where you know ahead of time that you're going to take a big flight. I don't know if you have used FareDrop. Is that something that's familiar to anybody? You can put in some destinations, and it will monitor fares for those destinations, and then let what the fare changes are that come up. So if you're doing something international, say you want to go to Thailand or something, and you want to fly on some, one of those airlines that has the lie down seats and everything, the beds and stuff like that. You can do that really, really cheap generally if, by just taking the time to use FareDrop and find a really, really good rate, because there's some real anomalies that happen as far as the rates that you see people offer on the airlines and stuff like that. I've seen round trip to London for $400 kind of thing. Just really crazy prices on things like that. There's also as far as hotels, I don't know if any of you have used Hotel Tonight. Once in a while, we'll be in a situation where we're not going to make it to the next city in time, and so we need to find a hotel, or we haven't planned ahead enough and haven't booked the hotels, and so we'll go on Hotel Tonight. And I mean, the last time we used it, we stayed at a Kimpton in Sacramento, which was I don't know, it's like 900 a night was their normal rate. And we were there for 189 a night, you know, somewhere, it was under $200. So it was an amazing rate, but you get it that day. And it has to be, you book it after 12 o'clock PM. So
I know I worry way too much about travel costs than I should. I don't I don't think my clients appreciate how much nor really care as much that that I'm out there going, well, you know, we got to get this deposit in so we have a 14-day advance so we can you know, I'm constantly trying to figure out, okay, how do we get from point A to point B? But that's also why I started billing for pre-production.
I think
Is
that's really wise. I hadn't thought about that, but I think that makes perfect sense because you do burn up a lot of time figuring out the nuts and bolts, especially if you get a multi-city itinerary that you're doing for somebody. And I
I
did a
mean,
lot of those. Yeah.
I also know, I mean, I started doing that not only about travel, but also um, drone stuff. Just because, I mean, you'll sit down at your computer and spend, you know, 30 minutes, an hour, just making sure that you have proper clearance and filing you through Lance, you know, to get a clearance or something like that. And it's time. It's time. I mean, what are we billing? We're billing for our time. So if we don't kind of, you know, why should our time be free doing something for a client, whether that is arranging travel or figuring out drone stuff? That's
Well, and I'm also finding this has not necessarily just drone work is not necessarily about travel specifically, but I'm having to explain to people the value of getting a Part 107 or why you have to check for the Lance and when you can fly and making sure it's legal to fly and what time of day and et cetera and so forth, or how high you can go. And people still don't, some of my clients in some pretty big firms still are a little clueless about it. They're not pushing back. Well, one is pushing back. Uh, but you know, that's the law. What are you going to do? You know, I'm not going to take the chance of doing something that I could get my Part 107 removed and then I couldn't fly at all. I mean, they don't understand that you need a Part 107 just to fly for money at the start, you know, just to commercially fly.
But when you guys travel, how many here travel with more than a camera case? Like flying?
I do. Yeah.
You carry a lot of
not,
gear.
not a lot of gear, but I carry some gear.
Yeah. I usually have at least one checked bag of gear. And
More like a Pelican case with lights and stuff. You take your lights.
yeah, it's usually lights and tripod. My tripod gets checked. I carry on. I have a Manfrotto roller bag, which is a spinner bag, which I really love, which I don't see too many photographers with, but for me, it's been a lifesaver for my back over the Pelican.
Yeah.
That's my carry-on, and then I have my laptop, my briefcase with my laptop that I carry on. That's what I take on the plane. But I check a bag with my tripod and lights if I'm carrying lights, and then of course another suitcase for personal things.
Yeah, I've gotten to where when I travel now that I don't take my normal camera bag, you know, I actually pare it down. And I probably, you know, instead of taking two cameras with an assortment of lenses, I pretty well know the scope of the job. I'll take precisely what I need. It's worked out well. I'm always worried that I'm gonna, you know, do I need another camera? Do I need this? Do I need that? But it's worked out well for me. And then, you know, and then I just carry it with me. I take my briefcase on, my laptop, and I take my smaller camera bag. And then the tripod and so forth, I check with my baggage, but But
I
I've not,
always worry that I'm going to need something that I don't have. And so
yeah, I know that's
I
it,
tend
that's
to
it.
carry
And
a few extra
I,
things.
I've done this so many jobs where I've, I'm like, I've never used this extra gear. That's the one, and I'm thinking, well, I'm gonna try, and I did that the last time I went out to Boston. I took a smaller case with just what I knew I would need, and it worked out great. And then I've been doing that since. It's been the last year and a half or so, where I've just been taking what I know I'm gonna need. And I've never had any problems, so it's been a lot easier on my back and a lot less gear to worry about being damaged, because I've had some cases. I had some flight cases torn apart in baggage. So it can be rough.
Can I say something about contracts? Because I just kind of went through this a little bit. It wasn't even a travel job, but I got pushback on. So I've got a clause in my um, terms and conditions, which is a pretty standard clause, I think. At least yeah, I think it's a reasonably standard, which is, I'll just read it. Cancellations, postponements, and force majeure. I never had force majeure really in there until the pandemic. Then I started hearing that other people were doing it. And I thought, well, I better get on this.
What was that again, Barry? Could you say that again?
Force majeure.
Okay.
So the force majeure is basically nobody has any control over what has just happened. And in that case, it's usually nobody's held accountable for having to do anything. They don't owe you money, you don't owe them money. It's just, we're going to cancel or we're going to stop. And I think during the pandemic, it was, I don't feel safe, so we're just not going to shoot. And you're going to live with that, or something like that. But it's more about sort of cancellations and postponements. So what I've got is, and one reason I'm bringing this up is I'm always shocked at people who don't have this kind of language in there. And I finally got some pushback on a client, and I'll tell you a little bit more about that. But in the event of cancellation or postponement of a shoot by the client or agency at any time after shoot confirmation award, client or agency shall pay all expenses occurred by the creator up to the time of the cancellation, plus a fee equal to 50% of creative and licensing fees quoted above. This is where I got pushback. If a shoot is canceled within 24 hours of the shoot, client or agency shall pay 100% of creative and licensing fees and 100% of expenses quoted above. And then there's a weather clause. So I had to explain to them that if they cancel on me within 24 hours, the expenses in this particular case was my assistant. And canceling on an assistant in less than a day without paying them is evil, because they have booked it. They're not going to get another job on short notice, most likely, and it's not fair to them. And I still don't know what their response is going to be. I'm sort of having to renegotiate everything with them based compared to what I did for them last year. So I'm not even sure I'll continue to work for them. But those kinds of, I think that's kind of strong language that I've got in there. But these things are they're all part of the negotiations. So if somebody is unhappy, I'll talk about it with them and potentially change things. But there has to be somebody's feet have to be held next to the fire if they're going to cancel with very little notice.
I've got the same kind of language, Barry, in mine, and I've only had to enforce it twice, and that was the end of the client in both situations. But I did get paid.
Yeah.
And it was one of those less than 24-hour cancellations, and I enforced the 100% fee, and they paid it, and then I never saw them again, which was okay for both of us.
Yeah, this is another reason to get upfront money. I never shoot without some kind of upfront payment, because if nothing else, it needs to cover your expenses. And that, in terms of travel, that could be quite a lot. It would be way more than just an assistant, for instance, or even equipment rental if you're going somewhere and renting equipment, or even just charging for your own equipment as a rental. which I don't know how many architectural photographers do that, but it's pretty common for editorial and commercial work. But we are
Yeah.
doing commercial work, so I don't
Well,
know.
we are, you know, and if you're set up, it depends on your business structure, I think, but I know
Yeah.
some business structures, the accountant would have it set
Yeah.
up so that you would be charging for that. But um, yeah, I mean, I don't do anything with less than half down, just because I've had a couple bad experiences years ago, and so I know with at least half down that I'm not gonna lose any money on something like that. But
That's right. That's right. I do the same.
I'm
I
finding it harder and harder to enforce contract terms and licensing terms and things like that. And I'm not
That's a
sure if it's
whole
just a
other,
change in culture or a change in personnel or what it is.
yeah. Yeah, that's a whole other Zoom.
Yeah, yeah, it is, isn't it? Well, I wanted to get to a couple things before we wrap this up here, and one of them was a couple things that make life a whole lot easier, and that's the TSA pre-check to get that taken care of. Uh, and also, if you have an American Express or a Delta card or any of the, actually, I think any of the airline credit cards, you get a discounted rate on the clear lane, and for most airports they have a clear lane, so if you're TSA pre-checked and you have a clear lane, you just breeze through security. It's no time at all, even in O'Hare or or Atlanta or someplace like that. You get right through. But I kind of wanted to revisit the luggage question that Norman brought up here, and as far as what kinds of gear can you, or what kinds of luggage can you use that's not going to get trashed by the airport personnel, the airline
Should I
personnel.
go get some samples?
I've had some really bad ones, and and
I
I've
could.
had pretty good claims, but I can tell you what I use. But I was just curious if anybody else has some thoughts about what kind of luggage you carry.
Yeah, I used to use aluminum flight cases. I've got one that has held up. I had it for my Hasselblad, and it was my camera case. Now I use it for I keep lenses in it, and it's gone through anything. But Pelican cases are pretty robust. But
Hmm.
the standard aluminum flight cases, that that we used to use 30 years ago, they've all been trashed. The corners come off, they come apart, the handles, the ribbing. Um, like I said, I've got some samples. I could show you. I can tell you what not to use. And a camera bag, my carry-on is just a soft Tamrac bag.
Mm.
That's the bags I use. And I use a smaller one now for my carry-on, because my normal size one doesn't fit into the carry-on container. So
I love the think tank bags.
Yeah.
They're really good, and I bought a roll-on that has straps so you can wear it. So you have a little less room on the inside. I'm sorry to say well, maybe I'm glad to say I've never had to put that thing on my back, but I've always thought, well, what happens if I get somewhere where the streets are not nice, or God knows there's stairs. Um, anyway,
Yeah, I've used Think Tank for a long time, and they're really good bags. And additionally, like I had the wheels on the Think Tank bag basically wear out, and just reached out to them, and it's guaranteed for life, and they sent new wheels, and had to take the bag apart to get to the wheel assembly. But um and we also use it's actually a Think Tank video tripod bag is what they call it. Um, but we put all of our lights and our tripods and um, and stuff in that bag, and it holds it pretty well, and you can keep it under 50 pounds.
Has anybody ever put that sort of thing in these golf hard cases for golf clubs?
I used a golf bag, an ABS plastic one for
Yeah.
tripod and light stands for years and years. Yeah. And that was not a lot of money, and it lasted forever.
Yeah, it's SBK, I think, is one of the big makers for that. Yeah.
Yeah.
I think
And
the wheels.
I use Manfrotto bags now. They're the ballistic nylon, and they've got an ABS shell inside of them, and they have a lifetime guarantee on the ones that I bought. And I just recently, my spinner that I use for my camera, the wheels were worn on that, and so I contacted them. They just sent me a new bag. I didn't have to do anything, they just sent me a brand new bag, and that works out really well. But I'm only carrying monolights these days. And so I have a bag that's under 50 pounds that way, with 3 monolights and stands. And then I like Toomey cases. I use Toomey hard shell cases for my personal stuff. And they're a little pricey, but they last for hundreds of thousands of miles, even with the gorillas at the airport. So
Our travel lights, we're carrying the Boeing 750 travel kit, it's lights, that's a nice kit. I think it's about 50 pounds with stands and, reflectors and everything in it. And it's a soft case, but it travels well. I mean, it's pretty nice.
What I was going to say is I don't use it anymore because we haven't had the need, but when I was shooting 4x5, and then when I was shooting medium format, there's a company in Columbus called Cabbage Cases, and they make custom cases, and they are absolutely phenomenal. I mean, what they would do is they'd have foam case, and they'd cut it out for each and every, like the digital back went into a slot, everything went into a slot. And they know all of the things at the airport, so they make sure that it's meets all of the requirements. They're a great company. I mean, I'm not using them now just because what the gear we're carrying is smaller, but if I was trying to carry anything sensitive, they do great work, and they're great people. And you'll pay them pretty much the same amount of money for a custom case as you'll pay for Tamrac or Think Tank or whatever case. They're really great people.
I remember in the old days, I used to use the ATA cases with, the big heavy metal corners, and
I still have those.
I still got some of those. And
I've got some of the ones that I think they're like 16 by 16 by 16
yeah.
that used to put the photogenic machines in.
Yeah. I mean, I had one for my 4x5 for my CNR system that carried the camera, and then a big one that I've actually turned into a coffee table that was for my lights. And my light case weighed 150 pounds loaded, but I had a baggage waiver. That was back before 9/11, so people were a little bit more considerate with. You could get media waivers, and I don't know if they even do that anymore with the airlines. Have media
Yeah, I don't know.
waivers.
Yeah, but
But
those cases were amazing. And
nothing could hurt those.
oh, I mean, you could drop a grenade in one, shut the lid, and it'd be fine.
Yeah, those were great. Well, we've covered a lot of ground here really quickly. I sure appreciate your input. Everybody here has been at this a while, and so this is good vetted information. So, I hope that this will be valuable to those that listen to it later. So we're going to wrap up here. For those of you who want to, you can stay on this, and and chat for a little bit while afterwards. Next month, we're going to revisit infringement and copyright, and this was of Norm's asking.
Oh my God.
And yeah, and he and I both kind of were having some commiseration before the meeting started about what's going on. And so maybe we need to cover a few more things on this, but
Can we
that'll
have bourbon during the meeting next
yeah,
time?
yeah, I think that would be a good idea. So we'll have that'll be next month's meeting. I'll send out an invitation for that. But for everybody now, thank you again, and I really appreciate all your input. And have a good weekend.
This has been another episode of A Photographer's Life. If you've enjoyed this program, please let us know by liking this episode and subscribing to this channel. A Photographer's Life is brought to you by the Association of Independent Architectural Photographers. This episode is copyrighted and may not be used in full or in part without the written permission of the AIAP. Please join us again soon for another inside look at the world of professional architectural photography.